From WHYY and Billy Penn, it is Hittin season, a Philadelphia Phillies podcast. I'm your host, John Stolnis from The Good Fight and Billy Penn. You can follow me on Twitter at John Stolnis. And I say proudly, we are a Philadelphia Phillies podcast because this is one of the hottest teams in baseball, one of the best teams in baseball, and they are rolling right along right now. We're going to talk about the series against the San Diego Padres. As we are recording right now, the Phillies are actually on the field against the Angels and doing pretty well here in the early going. Maybe we'll know how they're doing. We'll have a bit more of a definitive look at what the Phillies are doing in this first game of the series in Los Angeles. But coming off a 3-game sweep of the Padres and doing a lot of good things in this series. The starting pitching, Alec, Bohm, the rest of the offense, everybody looking good. Joining me to talk about this red-hot baseball team, a fun baseball team here as they are rampaging through April, Justin Klugh and Liz Roscher. Justin from Baseball Prospectus. You can follow him on Twitter at Justin_Klugh. Justin, what's up, bud?
So last night the Angels lost 11-5 to the Twins. They were swept with that loss. They had lost 9 out of 10. According to Sam Bloom, an Angels beat writer, the Angels defense was horrendous. The pitching was bad too, and for the third time in that homestand, the offense didn't get a hit until the 5th inning. They, going into tonight, were 10-18. They are, as John said, losing currently to the Phillies in the 2nd inning. And I'm just saying that because, like I said for the White Sox and Rockies series, there is no reason for the Phillies to lose any of the games they are going to play against the Angels.
Yeah, I mean, there really shouldn't be any excuse, although I will say the Angels have at least one dynamite player on the roster, whereas the Rockies and White Sox didn't have a single one. Mike Trout, of course, who I'm sure we'll talk about during the course of this podcast as we talk a little bit about this Angel Series 2, looking ahead over the next few days. Liz Roscher from Yahoo Sports also joining us. There it is. You see her on the YouTube. Follow her on Twitter at Liz Roscher. Liz, hello. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing great. I'm enjoying my MLB app experience, which tonight told me to go check out the app while I was in the app.
That's good marketing right there.
I tried to sell you some pants.
The type of thing that annoys me was Luis Severino's no-hit bid, which was broken up not long after I looked at it. But, he's the no-hit through 7 innings, and I'm like, all right, well, what's it going to show me? So I touched on the notification and it brought me into the app. At the bottom popped up that little thing. It's better in the app. And the little thing, get the app here. I'm just like, all right.
What are we doing?
That's a marketing team that's on top of things.
Yep.
Why have notification? I'm sure someone with technical app knowledge can answer this question for me. Why? Why is that happening?
Listen, have you considered opening the app on a second device? Might be worth it.
Is it trying to sell me a secret at-bat app within the at-bat app? Like, if that's a thing, I'll do it. But it actually has to give me some cool content I can't get for the how many $100 I'm already paying.
Maybe it's the app. Maybe the app works differently for Apples and for non-Apple phones. And so, you had to open the app in the non-Apple app, even if you have an Apple phone. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas here, but
Is it 2008?
That's right. No.
We wish.
You can download the MLB
God.
app on your BlackBerry. It's very simple. You just scroll through the black and white text and you'll find it down there at the bottom of your applications. All right, listen, let's get into this podcast here. Phillies sweep the Padres. They come into this Angel series here as we're recording on Monday night, red hot. They beat the Padres by a combined score of 22-10. They are 19-10 on the season. Now, I got into a little bit of a Twitter fight today with some people who were willfully misunderstanding and I think just being little turds online, where MLB Network put up like wins in April, and they had the Phillies tied with the Braves with 18 wins in April. And obviously, yes, they for whatever reason lopped off the 3 games in March, forgetting, of course, the Phillies had a win in March. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Braves, and they were talking about how the Phillies are so hot in April and ignored the 3 games in March. I'm like, we don't do that, right? I mean, we lump in those 3 March games with the April numbers. Like when you do the Player of the Month award, you don't ignore the 3 March games. Like we didn't have a Player of the Month for March. It's all collectively 1 month. We do the same thing with September and October, but I had a bunch of yahoos and yokels who are yelling, well, they're talking about April. Okay, fine, sure.
Yeah, weird hill to die on, John.
Yeah,
it was
so
it was
stupid.
way dumber that they didn't factor March into their numbers than
weirder.
it was that everyone acting like you were the dumb one for not knowing that we're in March.
Some idiot doesn't know how to read a calendar. I mean, come on, obvious.
Just
Like,
one of those
April just means-
baseball months that doesn't count,
It's the start of this season. Like, you can't just say, everyone just says April because you can't say, start of the season is like so many extra words.
Yeah,
Right.
Go
Everyone
to
just
anybody's
says April.
Go to anybody's splits page on Baseball Reference. It will group March and April into the same category for that reason. So
yes, Baseball Reference does it, Fangraphs does it, of course, and it's weird that MLB Network didn't, and that was my whole point. But I think most people knew that and were just giving me a hard time. And of course, I foamed at the mouth, which is what you do on X.
Mm-hmm.
So
Did
Well, we showed them.
meaningfully change adding those extra games in? Like, did that?
No, the Phillies still are tied for the most wins of any team in baseball, even if you account for the 3 games in March. So it didn't make any sense not to, like it just.
Okay.
This is the same network that will put out those position player rankings and put like a left fielder as the best second baseman in baseball. So come on.
This is a
give him
network that
break.
willingly employs both Brian Kenny and Mark DeRosa.
And
So-
Harold Reynolds.
Harold Reynolds still, who's grown on me the less he's been around. The less you hear him speak, the more insightful he is. I'll say. I welcome him now. Because it's like, hey, someone doesn't talk like A-Rod. Thank God.
Well, regardless of however you want to group the Phillies' wins here during the first month of the season, it's the most wins they've had in this first month of the season since 2011's 18 wins. They have a .655 winning percentage coming into play here on Monday. Now, that does rank behind 2011's .692 winning percentage. They finished 18-8 that month, so fewer games. Same thing with 1979. They had a .737 winning percentage that year. They started 14-5. And then in 1993, the famous 17-5 start where their winning percentage was .773. But still, they come into Monday night having won 11 out of 13 games. And if you look at, after those first 2 losses to the Atlanta Braves, in the games since then, the Braves have a 17-7 record with a run differential of +33. The Phillies are 19-8 with a run differential of +39. So again, you count those 2 Braves losses, and for sure. But the main point is that for pretty much the entire season right now, the Phillies are neck and neck running even with the Braves, off to the kind of start, Justin, that I think we all were just salivating that they would get off to. Didn't look like it was going to be that way at the start, but they're playing great baseball here as we finish up the month of April.
Yeah, one of the factors that really is key about this is the fact that they've played the most beatable teams in baseball. I know some people would use that as a reason to tear down what they've done, but it's actually really important that they do that because this is the part of the schedule that is easier. Last year, they kind of had flip-flopped where this part came at the end and they were able to make some hay, but it's going to get a lot tougher. They're going to have some tougher opponents in the latter half of the season this year. So to be able to just make up, not just like beat, but absolutely erase these teams and get every win they can is really crucial because we are seeing currently how close this divisional race might wind up. And if you are someone who believes they are truly in contention for the division, which I believe I'm the only one out of the 3 of us that picked them to win
You did
the
pick
division.
them. Yep.
That's going to be huge because the Braves will have a 2-week stretch or something, a 1-week stretch where they are really struggling. And that's cartoonishly small, but that's the Braves. And when that happens, you got to be able to take advantage of that, and that starts now where you're winning the games you're supposed to win. We kind of thought that window was opening when Spencer Strider went down for the season. Ozzie Albies broke his toe. No, that did not slow down the Braves at all, which was now stupid to think that it would. But at some point, they're going to have like a bad week, and you want to be able to have won every game you were supposed to win up to that point, because that's the only way to climb on top over the Braves. So the fact that the Phillies have been as successful as they have against teams they were supposed to beat and against these more challenging teams like the Reds and Padres.
Yeah.
That's key. That's key, and it's going to give this team a real boost in the second half when they're playing teams that aren't so easy to beat.
Trying to see the next time they face Atlanta because I was poking around about the Braves today because I saw Ronald Acuna Jr. is having the slowest start of his career.
Mm-hmm.
He's hitting 255, which is unheard of for him. So it's
One
poking
home
around.
run.
Yeah.
One home run.
And then, but I see also that Matt Olson and Austin Riley are also slumping.
Yeah.
Why are they? Here's the thing. Why are they still doing well? That's the thing. You're just like, at some point they're gonna have a bad stretch. I'm like, when? That time should be right now because they've got like players down for the count, and they've like 3 of their most important guys are just garbage, and unfortunately they can't buy a loss. Really, it's so frustrating.
I don't know, man. They were playing the Guardians, the best, like the A team. They should not have had an easy time. They came back to beat the Guardians and win that series. You see the Braves go down 8-0, and then you turn the game off, and later that day you're watching highlights of the Braves' miraculous comeback. I mean, that's just how it is. Like, they are capable of losing, and I wrote something on Baseball Prospectus about this, where the Braves can lose, they just don't. But I do think, there will be just law of averages. There will be a stretch where they eventually don't look like the best team on earth. They will not stay that way, but they will be down for the count at some point, and that's what makes winning these games so important. But you're right. Right now, it doesn't feel like they're ever going to lose again.
Well, it's just a tremendous combination right now with this baseball team of great starting pitching just about every night out there. You're going to win a lot of baseball games when you've got starting pitchers that are going as deep into games and are as dominant as these guys are right now. And the Phillies offense is also scoring a lot of runs early. They all of a sudden lead the National League in home runs. They're up there. I think they're top 2 or top 3 in slugging percentage, isolated power, on base percentage. The offense has just come around. And the great thing about it is that you've had, it seems like a different couple of heroes every game. I mean, you had the Bryson Stott 2-homer game on Sunday. Alec Bohm, of course, we're going to talk more about him in just a second, but Alec Bohm has just been on a raging fire. But Trey Turner's been hot most of the season. Bryce Harper has been productive in certain spots, but in certain games, you have a couple of different heroes. One game it's Schwarber and Turner. The next night it's Harper and Real Muto. And then you have Bryson Stott or Alec Bohm putting the team on their backs for one night. And when you've got the starting pitching the Phillies do right now, Liz, you don't need a whole lot of offense. You don't need 8 stars. You need like 3 or 4 guys to step up, and they're putting up 6-7 runs a game right now. With this starting rotation, that's all you need. This is a winning recipe. This is what the 2011 Phillies did with their starting rotation. They didn't need a ton from the offense, and I think this offense is better than that 2011 offense. Remains to be seen if the starting pitching will hold up to that kind of standard. But right now, it's just, this is the recipe for success in Major League Baseball. The Phillies are doing it all beautifully. Yeah,
like it's been super encouraging. Like, they don't need the runs, but it's nice to see them have them. Like, they stepped up. Who was it who gave up a bunch of runs? Was it Taijuan Walker?
Taijuan Walker late in the game on Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually think that was
Sunday.
Yeah, I think that was not a bad outing for him altogether. But like the Phillies showed up for him and put up the runs that he needed. And so, they do actually need it, from not even just from time to time. For me, they need to do that all the time because the pitching isn't always going to be there. It's just not.
Yeah.
It's not always, I'm enjoying the heck out of this because this does feel like let's roll the tapes back. We're not doing that. No. We could roll the tapes back to our frustration earlier in the season, which was warranted when you look at it on a game-by-game basis, which here is that's what we're doing here. But it feels like it was a month ago. It's a different team. They're doing exactly what we wish they would have done immediately. But in reality, they didn't need to do it immediately. They just needed to start doing it at some point. I'm glad they've chosen now and not later.
And obviously no team is going to win all of its games, but when you have a pitching staff that gives you the chance to win what feels like 9 out of 10 games, you're going to be in a pretty good spot, especially with the offense finding its footing and scoring enough runs to win games. This is what happens, but that's the key part. The pitching is the spine of this team, and it's the reason that they are in every game.
And that's the thing. They are in every game. Have only on a few occasions, and it hasn't been for weeks, where they've been out of a game early. They're just, they seem to be ahead pretty much all the time now, which was not the case earlier in the season. Every time you look up, it looks like it feels like the Phillies have a lead of some kind, which is just, it's a whole lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch games like that. You know, the stress level, it's amazing to watch a baseball team and not feel stressed out for the entire time you're watching them, which is it's a beautiful thing. It really is.
Alec Bohm came up with the bases loaded tonight and hit a single and drove in 2 runs, and I was like, what a cliche at this point.
Save some for everyone else, man.
Is it time to talk about him
yet?
Time. Can we do that?
It's time, because one of the questions I wanted to pose was, who had a better April, Alec Bohm or Ranger Suarez? And let me start off with Alec Bohm, and let me give you some of the details here. National League Player of the Week last week. The second straight week, by the way, a Phillies player won back-to-back Players of the Week. Do you guys remember the last time a Phillies players won Players of the Week back-to-back? Justin is shaking his head. Yes.
I was nodding. I thought you were going to ask, did we remember who the last Phillies Player of the Week was, which now I realize was a silly question.
Well, that's Trey Turner, the week before.
I feel like that's we could guess this. Was it okay. Was it Rhys Hoskins and
I'll give you a hint. It was
Zach
one
Wheeler.
player. It was one player.
Who
won? Incorrect.
Nuts.
Liz, who's the Phillies player won back-to-back Player of the Week honors? The last time a Phillies player has won it back-to-back weeks. Who do you think it was?
Is it Bryson Stott?
It is not Bryson Stott.
Who is it?
It is Dominic Brown from 2013, when he won consecutive National League. May of 2013. That was my favorite.
The 20 homer month. What was that?
Yeah, the 12 homer month.
12
homer when he won Player of the Month that month for the month of May.
I got him into the All-Star game.
Got him into the All-Star. His overall numbers that year looked great. I don't know if anybody looks back at his numbers every once in a while.
I don't do that anymore.
But in over his last 12 games, during a 12-game hitting streak right now, Alec Bohm, 25 for 48. That's a 5.21 batting average. And that was coming, and he extended that hitting streak to 13 games here on Monday. He had 11 runs, 10 doubles, 3 homers, 16 RBIs, and now that's 18 RBIs over his last 13 games. His 365 batting average is third best in baseball, 441 on-base percentage, 615 slugging percentage overall. He currently has the most wins above replacement among any third baseman in baseball, and the fourth most wins above replacement of anyone in baseball, trailing only Mookie Betts, Juan Soto, and Gunnar Henderson. Just an amazing start here for Alec Bohm, and I know there's been some articles written about what he's doing differently right now, avoiding. It seems like he is really one of those guys who has gotten a lot out of the swing changes that some of the other players may have been struggling with, like Nick Castellanos, that have kind of gotten them a little bit out of whack. Maybe Alec Bohm, his a little refinement at the plate has helped turn the former number 3 overall pick into a much better hitter so far this year. At least that's what the Phillies are saying right now.
Yeah, Alex Coffey was writing about that, how he's chasing less pitches on the edge of the zone. And my question was, why can't Nick Castellanos learn to do that? They are saying it, and it is working for some people, but it's not working for other people. Whatever. We're focusing on Bohm right now. And over that 3-game set in San Diego alone, he was in a 3-way tie for the hit lead in all of baseball while they were playing the Padres. He went 8 for 13 with 3 doubles and a home run. And I said this on Twitter, but he hit his 11th double on Sunday. He didn't hit his 11th double of last year until June 15th.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, because it's the Braves who are, like we said, they're always a half step ahead of the Phillies. 2 members of the Braves, they have had 3 doubles over the same span as Alec Bohm, but the only person with more doubles than Alec Bohm in all of Major League Baseball right now is Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I need to eat some crow a little bit here. I've never been, I would say, down on Alec Bohm, but we had a lot of conversations about how expectations for people to take a step forward this year, and I was all about Bryson Stott taking a big step forward this year, and I'm not saying he won't, but he has obviously had a slower start. Alec Bohm, I was characterizing more as a guy we saw his ceiling already, and it's a perfectly fine ceiling, and we're perfectly fine with Alec Bohm playing third base, for now. Totally off on that. He has shown a completely new level to his game, and it's incredible to see. I'm more than happy to be wrong about that, just because of the stats you just threw out there, the stats I just threw out there, and the fact that, him coming up with the bases loaded tonight. I've said there's no one I want to see less coming up than Nick Castellanos right now with runners in scoring position. There's nobody better than Alec Bohm to come up with runners in scoring position right now. Those runs are probably coming in. It's a fantastic feeling, and for it to be him specifically, especially after Brandon Marsh just had such a wonderful beginning of the season, and like seeing all these young players really like being the engines of this offense while the older guys are taking a second to get started. It's so encouraging and it's so exciting. And then if you read Matt Gelb's story in The Athletic that was just about them being best friends, you're like, this is just a peak situation. It cannot get better than this. This is fantastic.
Liz, we've been calling for the Phillies to find a cleanup hitter.
My favorite thing I read
about there's a delay there.
My favorite thing I read about Alec Bohm lately was that he really likes coming up with men on base. He said with the bases loaded, with no one on base, he feels kind of directionless. But with men on base, he's like, I know what I have to do. I have to put the ball in play. That is that these runs need to come in, and I have to do that. And I thought that is, what clarity and what focus to be able to just tunnel and narrow and just to be able to get himself together when there's pressure and expectations. Like that's what you want. That's the ideal athlete, when he feels, his most powerful, when there's the most at stake.
Yeah, and that's the thing is being able to, with runners in scoring position, to be able to understand that the pressure's on the pitcher, right? The pitcher should be the one who's under more pressure than you. There's nowhere to put you as a hitter when there's runners on base, there's runners in scoring position. And by being able to lay off, because here's the thing about Bohm, laying off that stuff on the outer edges of the plate. If they're kind of on the edges of the strike zone, he's a good enough contact hitter that he's going to make contact. He's not going to swing and miss a whole lot. And that's one of the good things about his game, is that he does make a lot of contact. But if he's making contact with those pitches on the outer edges, or he's getting jammed when balls are coming in on his hands, he's not going to make good contact. This year, he's just kind of spitting on those pitches and waiting for pitchers to come over the middle of the plate with stuff where he can put his good swing on it. And we've been waiting for somebody to be a right-handed hitter to be able to perform hitting behind Bryce Harper in the lineup, to give Harper some protection. If Bohm continues to hit like this, then Harper is probably going to see better pitches to hit. At least that's the logic behind some of the lineup construction there. And so it's a twofold benefit, Justin, by having Alec Bohm kind of be this hot. Not only do you get the production from Bohm, but you now are providing a little bit more protection for Bryce Harper in the lineup as well.
Absolutely. And that's just going to make the guys hitting ahead of him even more productive, like you're saying. Like that's going to be huge. And that's kind of how one guy can impact the success of the rest of this lineup. It feels like just yesterday we were complaining about how nobody really seemed to have their heads on straight. Nobody was coming up to the plate with a plan. The plate approaches for a bunch of these guys was all wrong. And, it's easy to say, like I said earlier, well, if Bohm can learn to lay off pitches on the edge of the zone and swing at more hittable pitches and be patient, then why can't a guy like Nick Castellanos? But at the same time, he's kind of providing cover for a guy like Nick Castellanos, who, as absurd as it seems right now, will hit at some point this season. He will. He will have, if it's just for a week, he will find the strikes. He will be able to see the ball and actually make hard contact, the kind of hard contact he's not making. But for now, the lineup can score 7 runs a night with a guy unfortunately, Nick Castellanos struggling in it. And, a couple of the other guys, Stott's still waiting to really get going, even after that 2 home run game. And having Bohm in the lineup, who, I don't think anybody in the Phillies clubhouse would tell you we weren't expecting this, but this wasn't a super widespread projection that he would be this productive for, even as long as he has. That's a huge, I want to say bonus, because, again, this is a guy who was expected to be an offensive asset, but he is providing cover for the guys who are struggling, and he's also doing what we have really been hammering the Phillies to do, which is come through in the clutch. Those clutch moments have come up, and it really just feels like they don't have, they can't get the bat on the ball. They can't lay off pitches out of the zone. But for one guy, that's really taken. That development has really happened, and Bohm has been able to do that. So he's really doing this offense a service as a whole, and you're seeing those benefits up and down the lineup.
And I didn't see this coming. I really didn't. I thought Bohm had reached his ceiling. I thought we'd seen what we were going to get from him. I was kind of down on him, actually, and I certainly did not see him as a, he's still signed with this team for a number of years. He's under team control for a number of years, so he wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. But he didn't seem to me to be a guy who was like, oh, you got to find a way to keep Alec Bohm on the roster. That was not what I was thinking. And still a long way to go, right? I mean, you got to see how this continues. But he's been one of the best players in baseball. Just the numbers tell you that, and it's been an incredible thing to watch him explode like a number 1 draft pick should. Number 3 overall pick. We forget how early he was taken in that draft. Like he had this in there, right? I mean, he had this in there. His walk rate up 11.9% up from his career 6.8%. With his strikeout rate unchanged. Like he's just doing such a much better job at seeing the baseball this year.
When is he even finding time to walk?
Yeah, right.
Like when is he doing that? He's he's hitting the ball constantly. Like who's walking him? I guess eventually you need to, because he will put the ball in play.
Yeah. So I guess the question is, how much do we believe in this start? Right? How much do we believe? Like, is he on an all-star track? Like, can he keep this up? I mean, he might not be a 1,000 OPS guy for the entire year, but like, how strongly do we believe that this Alec Bohm, this hot streak, that this is going to stick around? Like, we're going to see some semblance of this kind of hitter for the rest of the year.
Keep doubting him, John. he thrives on it. It's all he wants. Just keep doubting him. You want him to fail. It feels like my expectation for him for this year was for him to maintain what he did last year. That is what I wanted for him. I did not think he was going to take a step back, though I understood if he would have, but my expectation was for him to maintain, and that he has done that and better. I feel thoroughly vindicated. Thank you.
So his BABIP is 420.
Yeah. There's also that.
But I'm going to say that I think this is a long-term success. Even if he drops off in some form, I think what he's done and what he's developed and what he has learned in this time where we saw him like not go from last year in the ceiling we all decided was as high as he could go. Well, the Phillies have a great hitting program. They have great hitting coaches. They have great guys on staff to offer the kind of adjustments that a guy like Alec Bohm can make and really improve his game. So I think this is proven to be an education, and eventually, this is the truth with all hitters. Eventually, if you're a thorn in the side of every pitcher you face, they're going to find a way to beat you. They're going to at least come up with a plan to try and beat you, and then you're going to have to adjust again. And great hitters can do that, and that's kind of the most important part of this, that Alec Bohm found a way to adjust, and he found a way to get better, and that means he can do it again. And he knows he can do it again. So it's more than just like, oh, he learned, and he now has the confidence he can keep getting better or adjust the next time he needs to. And that's really important for a guy who's still pretty young and still closer to the beginning of his career than the end. So that, I think, is why you can look at this as more of a long-term success, even if, he has a rough stretch at some point.
And I'll say I was going to talk about the confidence, actually, because that's what being on this Phillies team has gotten him. Between Kevin Long and his best friend / roommate, Brandon Marsh. Like, the two of them are, like, there for each other, both on the field and, like, emotionally. And, like, to hear them talk, even just briefly, like, yeah, we go to each other for off-the-field stuff, too. It's, like, it's nice to feel that they're comfortable. And that just it says to me that they're already feeling in the groove, and Alec Bohm is ready for a slump. I feel like he would rather be challenged constantly. He feels like the type of guy who needs to be challenged in order to keep getting better.
Yeah, no, that's and I think too, if you look at the challenge that he had to overcome with his fielding improving, one of the reasons his wins above replacement is so high is because, according to most of the metrics, he's become kind of a net neutral defender, which is a huge improvement over where he was a couple of years ago. And just remember the fan base coming out and cheering for him that night after he said he hates this place. You know, that helped him propel his 2022 season. Things could have gone in a much different direction for Alec Bohm after that night and when he made all those errors. And
I'd honestly say that was a bigger Philly moment than clapping for Trey Turner, which was also cool. But that was a more quintessential and organic thing.
That was more organic. Well, the Trey Turner thing came from that. People saw they had helped Alec Bohm a couple of years ago. Let's do it for Trey Turner. But the Alec Bohm thing was just like, oh man, I've been there. We got to get this guy's back. He's just the poor guy. You know,
we've all hated it here at some point. Did anyone watch the Sixers last game?
Yeah,
that's right.
We've all hated it here. We've all hated our jobs. We've all hated our coworkers. We've all hated everything about our lives. It's just like being in Philadelphia. It's like we all get it, and it felt like that. That felt special. It felt in a way that the spirit of Philadelphia entered him that night and has not left. He just sort of imbued something of the city within him, and now he's like unstoppable.
I almost got to I hate this place on Twitter today. So that was I totally relate, Alec. It's 100%.
I am there every day. If you don't say it, John, if you don't say it every day,
right,
you're admitting that you love it. So you need to say it every day.
That's true. And
we're mentioning the how Brandon Marsh and Alec Bohm in Gelb's story were characterized as being these great friends ever since the trade from the Angels and how they're inseparable. But without getting corny, I want to say that we talk about the vibes of this team. Well, the camaraderie kind of sets the bar for the vibes, and that is something that you can't always plan. And you want to give credit. I'll give credit to Dombrowski for putting the roster together with these guys. You have to, I'm sure you must factor it in some way, but it's like the toughest thing is to plan for chemistry when you're putting a roster together. And we all saw. I don't know. I'm not breaking anyone's brain by pointing this out, but when Castellanos hit his first home run of the season, and they were all waiting at the dugout steps.
That was cool.
Everybody recognized that as a moment where this team was these guys don't just play together. They actually like playing together. And people who play together are more relaxed and loose and feel better. And guys who are loose and relaxed are just a better baseball team. They brought up countless examples, and my favorite one is still when Bohm actually screwed up on defense last year. I don't remember which game, but Turner and Stott came over to him, and Stott gave him this little clap of just hey, it's okay. It's all right. Yeah. We got it.
Yeah. No, I've my kids have played on teams, and I remember playing on teams where the difference between your teammates being happier for your success than for their own, getting actually legitimately excited when you do something well, means everything. And it just makes it so much more enjoyable. And that's the vibe that this team has. That's the camaraderie that this team has. They were happier for Castellanos' home run than probably anything they had done during the course of the year that far. So,
and that's important. Again, not just bringing it up to be corny. Just that is important that this team has established that well before this year. But that is still a characteristic of this team makes them a stronger team. It just does.
All right, let's get to the other half of the question. I asked who's had a better month, Alec Bohm or Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez, unbelievable month of April so far. He has had a scoreless inning streak, ended against San Diego at 32 innings. Gave up a meaningless solo home run in the 8th inning of the game on Saturday, but 6 starts so far this year for him, 5-0. In 41 innings, he has a 1.32 ERA, which is the best in the National League. It's second best in Major League Baseball behind only Jose Barrios. He has a 2.62 FIP worth 1.3 wins above replacement. That's second best in Major League Baseball behind Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford of the Red Sox, and it's tied with Zach Wheeler. Both those guys with 1.4 wins above replacement, according to F4. Opponents hitting 152 against Ranger Suarez. And Liz, Ranger is just making it look so cool. That's the thing. We know, and we've seen him like that before. Like, we see him in the playoffs come in Game 5 of the National League Championship Series, 2 pitches to get 2 outs and send him to the World Series. But we see him go out there just like, snagging balls behind his back, tossing to first base. Like, just nothing phases him. And he's made it look so ridiculously easy so far this year, but in a different way than we see most pitchers make it look easy. He just doesn't look like he does anything with maximum effort. Everything just looks like it's just flowing out of him, and it's just he's a machine right now. He's very Cliff Lee-like in the results and the way he's commanding the baseball.
He's very Cliff Lee-like, but he gives off a much different vibe.
Yeah,
a
more fun vibe.
A much more fun vibe, a friendlier vibe, a less scary vibe. Like Cliff Lee, it sometimes felt like he didn't care. With Ranger, when he does that, it feels like he's just in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like his body is reacting without him really thinking about it, which every baseball player says that's the ideal. You want to be able to do the things you need to do without thinking.
Yeah.
They don't want to think. And that's the key, because it's like he's entered a superior flow state. He knows exactly what he needs to do at every point.
Yeah, Justin,
I read once you want to be conscious without thinking.
Where
you're aware of what you're doing, but it's not taking anything to do it. Like, you just look at 2 + 2 and you know it's 4.
Exactly.
I was just saying, like, one of the things JT Realmuto has talked about, Justin, is just how they've been able to kind of keep batters confused. And this is the kind of stuff that the Atlanta Braves pitching staff always used to do. With Greg Maddux, he was 1 and 2 steps ahead of you every single time. Like, hitters were expecting one thing, but he was playing chess while you were playing checkers. And Glavine did the same thing. John Smoltz overpowered you a little bit more than those other guys, but Zach Wheeler's doing that. Aaron Nola's doing that. Ranger Suarez is doing that right now. They just the way they're mixing up their pitches, and Ranger specifically has 5 pitches that he's using right now. And he makes his 92, 93 mile an hour fastball play up a whole lot faster than that, because in, out, up, down, corners, like nothing is in the middle of the plate right now with Ranger. Again, he is so locked in. I just, again, it's like I'm finding it hard to believe what I'm watching, like with Alec Bohm. Like, how is he really this good? Like, can I really trust it? Because he's been the best left-handed pitcher in baseball so far this year, and we've seen him have stretches like that, short stretches like that. But it's been remarkable how good he's been.
Yeah, I think you made mention of this earlier, but Zach Wheeler's tied for the most wins above replacement for starting pitchers in baseball. Ranger Suarez is tied for second most, and he's a 1/10 of a point behind Zach Wheeler.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I messed that up. Yeah.
This is again, I'm not sure you would have expected this necessarily, but I think this is less of a surprise than perhaps Alec Bohm's early success this year. We've certainly seen hints of this. Suarez had some injury time missed last year that I think really dinged his numbers and potentially his development. But this is when you have 5 pitches, like, all anybody's up there doing is guessing.
Yeah.
Like, the game plan coming up against a guy who's got 5 pitches, can make them all work, and as a catcher like Realmuto back there, sticking to the plan and keeping guys off balance, that's going to be it. That's exactly a recipe for a scoreless streak that's over 30 innings long. You mentioned Cliff Lee. What, he have 2 30-inning scoreless streak stretches in 2011?
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
One in June
That's
and
crazy.
one in August.
It's the apt comparison at this point. In addition to the cool, calm, and collected demeanor, I mean, it's. I can't stress enough how crucial it is to this team to have a third pitcher who can pitch as dominating as well as Ranger Suarez has, and that's putting aside the rest of the pitching staff, which I think we would all agree there's no true weak link in this staff. There's just guys who are like pitching at a high level, and then guys who are pitching at a slightly less high level.
Yeah.
And Suarez is he's right up there, man. I would put him in a playoff situation in a heartbeat. It's even, there's no hesitation there at this point. He's got to be like the best number 3 pitcher in baseball. He would probably be the top of the rotation on some staffs in this league. So yeah, this is exactly what you want. It's ideal. A guy who can throw anything and throw it well, and he's got a catcher who can run his game for him, and he's got everybody in the league wondering what he's going to throw next. I mean, that's That's exactly what you want. That's a tall order, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and Ranger is, you said best number 3 starter in baseball. He's all, and he has a legendary postseason resume already. Like even in just the 2 seasons and what he's done, he's already put together some of the best playoff games we've ever seen from a Phillies pitcher here in the playoffs. And so my original question is, who's off to the better start? Like,
I know, I keep avoiding that.
I know, because who's had the better April? Who's off to the hotter start so far this year? I'll say that I think
there's not a wrong answer.
There's not a wrong answer. I feel
Ranger Suarez.
Ranger Suarez. That's my answer too. But it is really close.
I'll say Alec Bohm just to be different from you guys. If you're bumping up Alec Bohm against names like Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, like the names we were just using to compare to Alec Bohm stats, then something's really changed in a big way. Not changed, evolved. That's and again, because I was someone who said like, yeah, no, we've seen what we're going to get from Alec Bohm, and we're seeing so much more. I'll say Alec Bohm just because he deserves it too.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, Liz.
I was trying to think about like who's more instrumental to this Phillies start, and I can't separate it really, because Alec Bohm is out there every day helping out, but Ranger Suarez doing what he's done and keeping the runs to a minimum during the times when Alec Bohm is not coming up in the next inning.
Minimum. Literal
minimum. Like they could not have. This would not have happened without both of them. Like, they're both vital.
I will say this. I think the most important thing about being able to maintain winning streaks really might be that number 3 starter. That you expect to get really good starts from your ace and good starts from your number 2. But it's that middle of the rotation a lot of times where it's really hard to finish off a sweep. It's really hard to keep a winning streak going. But when you've got that number 3 who's pitching like a number 1, all of a sudden now long winning streaks seem more possible. And you can struggle a little bit offensively if your starting pitching is performing lights out. If your offense is is doing well, but your starting pitching can't get anybody out, you're less likely to win than vice versa. As we saw earlier in the season when the pitching staff was carrying an offense that was doing nothing, and yet they were still about 500. The reason I think Ranger is more instrumental is because I think he allows the winning streaks to kind of progress. He's that bridge to kind of being allowed to continue. And certainly Alec Bohm, his performance in the offense and where he hits in the lineup is crucial to this team's success right now. But there's no wrong answer, Justin. Like you said, both these guys have been absolutely crucial so far. Let's talk about Taijuan Walker real quick. He made his first start of the season on Sunday. Had only given up 3 runs through the first 6 innings. It was kind of a surprise that he came back out for the 7th inning. I know that he hadn't thrown many pitches up to that point, but Thompson left him in. He gives up a 3-run homer in the 7th, turned a 7-3 game into a 7-6 game. So the line looks a little bit worse than it otherwise might have been. Liz, I think you said you were a little bit more encouraged by Taijuan Walker's start than discouraged. Talk a little bit more about that, because I think I agree. I do think if Spencer Turnbull didn't have the innings issues that he'd be sticking in the starting rotation and Taijuan Walker would have to figure out something else. But I get why Walker's in there, and I think it was encouraging the first 6 innings anyway. He was getting guys out.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I was encouraged by. And, the runs he gave up before he came out do count. Those are his. They don't belong to Thompson. That's not how it works. But even with that, I was still happy with it. The Phillies won. They put up the offense they needed, which is what they're supposed to do for their number 5 starter. Like, not every Phillies starter is supposed to give up 4 runs and under a game. Every rotation has, a garbage. Calling him a garbage time guy is terrible, but it's the 5th starter. They're not all going to be aces. They're not all going to be, Ranger Suarez. They're not even going to all be Chris Sanchez. Like, they have to have a guy like that. And this is who he is. And the fact that he gave up just a little bit in 6 innings, 3 runs over 6, that's better than most 5th starters, honestly, especially one coming back from injury. So I was actually pretty happy with it, even with the way it ended.
Disagree. I feel like that went about as well as I guessed it was going to. I'll give him um, I'll give him that he's coming back from injury. That's obviously a factor, but he walked and gave up a ground ball single, to get those runners on base before the home run he gave up to Luis Campusano. So it's not like if those had been like errors or missed calls or something, maybe I can get on board. But like he got those runners on base, and 6 runs is enough. We've seen that's enough to beat the Phillies. Like that is, if you're giving up 6 runs, he's fortunate the offense has found its way again and is like scoring runs and was piling runs and kept scoring from the 2nd to the 8th inning. But at the same time, he got those runners on base. He did it earlier in the game too. Like he is, he's got some more to show. I think I'm glad that they're not going to stick with 6-man rotation, but they're going to give Spencer Turnbull another start.
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're going to give Wheeler and Nola an extra day of rest. I'm glad they're going to do that once. I know they don't want to stick with it, and that makes sense too. I think we said in the last episode, it's better that Turnbull goes to the bullpen now. You do have to conserve his arm, I think. You can debate on how much that needs to happen, but you do need to be a little conservative with how much you leave him. And when you have Walker, you got to be able to use him too. And I also said you're going to see more than one start from Taijuan Walker. But that one was, I think, generally what people were thinking. You can fault Thompson, certainly, for leaving him longer than he should have. I think he did. But you can also fault Walker for, he got himself in trouble and then he paid for it.
Yeah, they should have gotten him out. They should have had somebody warming up in the bullpen at the start of the 7th inning. Like that's
a concern about Thompson. I'm starting to have more and more, that he's not getting guys warming up when he should, and pitchers who are struggling are being left out there to just kind of dangle, and that leads to more runs and deeper holes.
Yeah, we've seen that with Sir Anthony Dominguez a couple of times, Gregory Soto a couple of times. It seems pretty clear at a certain point that guys don't have it that particular night, and he's just a little slow. He is slow getting guys
when Walker's
out of games.
100%, he's given up a lot of hard contact.
Yeah,
even when he is not coming back from injury, and he's been pitching on a regular basis. So knowing that is enough of a reason to have somebody warming up by the 7th inning with Taijuan Walker on the mound.
I think this is just a quality of Thompson's managing. He's a player's manager. He's always going to default to trusting his players. He's always going to think he could do it. He told me he's good, and I believe in him and I trust him. That's
10 out of 10 pitchers are going to say that they're good, when they come out like, oh yeah, no, I got another inning. I mean, no pitcher's going to be like, that's it. No, I feel weak today.
Yeah.
And
if
Walker coming back from injury, that's the time to be conservative with him.
Fair enough. I mean, if Thompson is still doing this in 2 months after we're, way into the season, then that's a huge problem. But this early on, if he's going to give some guys, cut some guys some slack, I get it. Like it's the same. It's the same reasoning why they're giving Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola an extra day of rest. Let's do it now and get it out of the way. Let's be proactive. It's better that those two rest now than at the end of the season when they're all on one.
Right. Like, I'm not going to kill Rob Thompson for it because he's doing a great job. But I think I think we saw this in the playoffs last year with Craig Kimbrell in game 4. I mean, he gives up the tying run. Get him out of there. Don't let him give up the go-ahead run after that, it's not just a Taijuan Walker thing. And at the very least, you trust your player. Go ahead, let Taijuan Walker start the 7th inning. But, in the back of your mind, at least, you're saying to yourself, if he gets in trouble, I've got Hoffman warming in the bullpen, or I've got so-and-so warming up in the bullpen to come in and take over because it's his first start of the season. Let's not push this too far. And he's not a strikeout guy. Like, he's going to give up a lot of contact. And so, I think the Walker start was okay. I think it was fine. I think he's going to have starts where he gets hit around. I think he'll probably be an okay number 5 starter. I wish that Spencer Turnbull could stay in the rotation. I'll be very curious to see how they use him after this start on Tuesday against the Angels, whether they put him in as a late inning kind of high leverage arm, or whether they use him as like a piggyback guy. They keep him as a long man, try to keep him stretched out a little bit so that if they need to put him back in the rotation, they can. If they put him in the bullpen as like a 7th, 8th inning guy where he's doing 1 inning, 2 innings, like a Matt Strahm usage last year, might be harder to get him ramped back up as a starting pitcher later in the year. So I'm sure they have a plan for it all. we'll see how it all kind of shakes out, but it is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's about workload management right now. There's a lot of innings between now and the end of the season. There was going to be another person making starts. It was probably almost 100% going to be Walker when he came back from injury. That's going to happen, and you're not going to have your best arm out there all the time. So, this isn't news to anybody. It's more just how do you manage that particular guy in his situation, in his first start back from a delayed start where you're getting deep starts from all your other starters, and that's a huge luxury, but maybe play it a little more safely with the guy who's coming back late, who gives up a ton of hard contact, and who has gotten in trouble in this situation before.
Yeah, I thought he should have had somebody warming up at least, so that. But again, they survived it. He had a 4-run lead to work with. I get it. It worked out all right. I do want to throw one thing out there, and then we'll kind of move on. But we would be remiss if we didn't mention Aaron Nola's start on Friday. 8 innings, 3 runs, 7 hits, 10 strikeouts, 1 walk. He has a 3.20 ERA on the season. Since that first start against the Braves, where he gave up 11 hits, 6 runs in 4 1/3 innings, he's 4-0 with a 2.06 ERA. He's allowed a 163 batting average and has allowed 20 hits in those 5 starts. So Aaron Nola, after a shaky first start, looks like prime vintage good Aaron Nola right now. He's hitting all his spots with his pitches. It's really been fun to watch. All right, kind of last thing here as we wrap up. The Phillies are in Anaheim playing the Angels right now as we're recording this. It's the 5th inning. Phillies are up 4-2. Christopher Sanchez just struck out Mike Trout on a nasty back foot slider. It was beautiful.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Couple of things. This is Brandon Marsh's first time back to Anaheim since the trade to Philadelphia. And what is your assessment of the trade? I think we all liked the trade. Logan O'Hoppe going to the Angels. I think if you ask either team, I think they would, maybe they wouldn't say they won the trade, but I think they would both say that they're very happy with how the trade worked out. Now, when the Phillies made this trade, they knew they were trading a potential franchise catcher in Logan O'Hoppe, and those guys are few and far between. O'Hoppe, 293 average this year, 348 on base, 439 slugging, a 126 weighted runs created, 2 homers, 9 RBIs, 11 runs. He's been 0.5 Fangraphs wins above replacement. Good young player. He's only 24 years old.
Ooh, boy.
Brandon Marsh, 26, 2 years older, hitting .291 coming into the game on Monday, 333, 547 slugging percentage, a 141 weighted runs created, 6 homers, 16 RBIs, 10 runs, a 1.0 Fangraphs wins above replacement. He was worth 3.5 wins above replacement last year. On paper, the Phillies have done great with this trade, but Marsh, when he came to Philadelphia, he was going to be the center fielder of the future. That now seems to be Johan Rojas playing center, Marsh moving over to left field, where he's a great defensive left fielder there. But again, a corner outfielder isn't necessarily as valuable as a center fielder, and they haven't been playing him against lefties a lot of the time. So I guess I know, Justin, you love Brandon Marsh. When you look at this trade long term, would you still do it again? I imagine you would still do it again if you were the Phillies, because O'Hoppe's kind of locked in, right, by Real Muto.
Yeah, I mean, the context of this trade at the time was that Logan O'Hoppe existed to be traded, and that's still true. Like, he was blocked from the majors. Obviously, the Phillies had their man in JT Real Muto. They had Garrett Stubbs. They had Rafael Marchand. Like, he was coming up at a time in an organization where it was like, okay, who needs a catcher, and who can give us somebody in return that we need, because this guy, as great it would be for him to be playing for the Phillies in this way, the Phillies he was a surplus option for them. So he was a very tradable asset for the Phillies. And the fact that they were able to get Brandon Marsh, who was a change of scenery candidate, as every player on the Angels with any bit of promise is a great change of scenery candidate. But Brandon Marsh was, and the specific scenery, it turns out, was Philadelphia, where he met his best friend, who Matt Gelb described as inseparable, him and Alec Bohm.
I love it so much.
and that has like definitely boosted his game, and he clearly loves being here. Again, I don't know, you could come up with a place that Brandon Marsh wouldn't love being, because he loves being, but I feel like this was a great place for him to land, where he has really thrived. And we talked about this at the time. The Phillies are making deals like this partially because Kevin Long's watching tape and going, I can fix that. and can have a guy make an adjustment that makes him an even better hitter. And Brandon Marsh has unarguably been a better hitter since he's been here, and he's going to be a key role player for the Phillies moving ahead. He has been their best player in a lot of ways in the first month of the season. I mean, Alec Bohm obviously makes an argument for that. Trey Turner obviously makes an argument for that. But that we have three guys we can say qualify for that award, and Brandon Marsh is one of them, makes this trade a huge win for the Phillies. And to be honest, the Angels are going to screw this up. I don't know how.
Yes, they are.
You don't know how. They're going to screw it up. They're going to leave Logan O'Hoppe at a rest stop or something. They're going to screw this up because their organization is frankly too broken to not screw this up in some way. So
I mean, imagine what Logan O'Hoppe can do with a change of scenery.
Imagine, can you? And what if that scenery was Philadelphia? My goodness. Yeah. So it's I think this trade was definitely a win for the Phillies. At the time, it was, I was a fan of it at the time. I think it has only gotten better since it happened.
Yeah, Liz, I mean, Brandon Marsh is better than I thought he was going to be. Remember in the 2022 playoffs, like the 9-hole hitter, no power. You're just hoping he wouldn't strike out, and hit a couple of big home runs in that postseason. To where he is now, like, he's a middle of the order hitter who we're all crying for him to hit more against lefties because, he's got all the promise in the world. But I mean, you couple all the fun aspects of the guy. I think O'Hoppe is going to be a really good young catcher. He's got all the tools. But even if Marsh is a left fielder, he should be an everyday left fielder. It still looks like he's going to be a 3 or 4 win player moving forward, and he is young. Like, this guy is still really young.
Yeah, I mean, I would do the trade again. I mean, Logan O'Hoppe is very attractive, but Marsh is better. And in that Gelb article that came out on Monday, he did talk to Rob Thompson, who is starting him against lefties a little bit more. Like, he said, I'm going to start him against this lefty and then not against this one. And so that's something. He's not sitting always when lefties are playing. So that's
right.
When lefties are pitching. So that's progress. And I think Marsh has earned that. He has hit lefties a little bit better than he did last year. I'm saying that remembering what his splits looked like before this past full week.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've improved, but I think they might have.
Yeah.
It's just a guess.
I mean, and I agree. I would do the trade over again, and I think even if Marsh is in left field, it's still a good trade for the Phillies. I do want to mention one last thing. This will be the clickbait of the podcast, everyone. I'll just lay that out there. I didn't have this on the show sheet, so you guys have no idea I'm about to ask this, but the Phillies are playing Mike Trout this week, right? And you hear a lot of this stuff. We've talked a lot about the Mike Trout, the trade for Mike Trout, I'm not going to ask you guys whether you think the Phillies will trade for Mike Trout, okay? But I do want to ask you guys, Justin, you kind of laid out what the Angels' problems are right now coming into this series, how bereft they are, right? I mean, they are undoubtedly a going nowhere franchise. They're never going to go anywhere. Do you think Mike Trout does try to force his way out this year, or at some point, like, could he be on another team by the end of this season? I mean, I don't know at all. No way whatsoever. Liz is shaking her head no too.
What the Angels have injected him with, I don't know what shadow agents emerged, and I don't know what they're putting in his food. Mike Trout has never really seemed like he has never given any indication, I don't think, that he wants to leave Los Angeles, that he wants to leave the Angels. I think Ken Rosenthal earlier this year, something like, there's a report that he's like open to the possibility of a trade. And then like a week later, Mike Trout's saying like, no, I'm going to make it work here. I've chosen to stay and fight. Like, I don't know. I mean, guys,
to stay and fight.
Guys just, they I guess, just form an attachment. I'm not going to pretend to know what is keeping Mike Trout in Anaheim, but if he wanted out, he has had opportunities to get out, and he has chosen to stay. I don't think anything's changed there as far as that goes. I'm not going to guess why. Who knows why? but he seems pretty adamant about staying in Anaheim, which is absolutely ludicrous when you think about how completely stalled out their major league roster is, how they blew up their farm system, which was already terrible, to get guys like Randall Grichuk and Lucas Giolito in a vain attempt to show Shohei Ohtani that they were willing to get talent and contend in a weak trade market. Something, and he was always going to go into free agency, whether they did that or not. And obviously it did nothing to convince them. And now they're like the same team, but without the best player on earth. This franchise is going nowhere but down. And Mike Trout, unfortunately, will just go with them. He has looked more human the past 3 years than ever before. And he's still a great player. And it would be great to see him land on a team where he could actually do something in the name of baseball. But unfortunately, he is with the Angels in hell.
Liz, do you share that assessment?
Guys, do you like moving? I don't like moving. I have to move. I have to move in the next month. I don't like moving. Do you like starting a new job with new people? Do you like doing that? Do you want to drag your wife and child away from where the child was born, where his wife has lived with him for the past how long? I think at least a decade now. He's not going
way
anywhere.
Worse players than Mike Trout have been willing to do that.
This is not.
But
I don't,
you know what?
he
doesn't have to. They've been willing to do it, but he doesn't want to. It's clear. The only difference between him and Chris Bryant is that Chris Bryant won a World Series trophy. He has a ring. The only difference between them is that Chris Bryant had the luck to get on a team that won a World Series before he had the choice of where to sign a large contract. Not every player wants to, it feels the desire to be on this, winning team. Some players just want to play and go home.
Which is funny because the Angels also have the guy who was like, I don't really care about
baseball's
baseball.
Not that important to me, and Anthony Rendon. Yeah,
what's going to happen?
It's the team of the working baseball players.
This is the team of apathy. Mm-hmm. And that's not good, right? I mean, can we all agree that that's not good?
We're problem.
No, but these are not positive things about Mike Trout. I mean, I don't. Here's what I'm saying. I don't think Mike Trout.
It's his choice.
It's his choice for sure. I'm not saying it's not his choice, but he's 32 years old and he's never going to play in another playoff game. If he stays with the Angels,
something's gonna happen. Something will happen if Mike Trout ends his career with 12 at bats in the postseason. All of them in 2014 when he was 10 years younger than he is now, and that's it.
How can Major League Baseball allow that? They're gonna have to rig it. Yeah. They have to rig something.
He's only 30. You said 32, and I'm like, that can't be right. He's what?
He's played for 14 years.
35?
Yeah. Yeah, he's played for 14 years in the league, though.
You are. I mean.
Yeah, it's incredible.
You want him to do it. You want him to leave, but you know what? He feels some kind of loyalty. He's just one of these players.
Just go to the Yankees or something. It's better for all of us if he stays in Anaheim.
He does not want to.
I think
any team in the world would dump him out. If the Yankees could get him, even at this point, if they could sign him instead of Soto, they'd do it. They would do it. Well, I'm saying
if he had been willing to leave, he would have just gone to the Yankees or Dodgers or something, and that would have just been worse.
Yeah, he could go anywhere. He just doesn't.
He doesn't seem to want to. I think I'll make this prediction. I don't know if it happens this year. I don't think he's finishing his career in Anaheim with the Angels. I think there were the reports were that he was pushing Arte Moreno to sign some more bats. Saying he didn't want to concede anything. There's these guys who are out there, and ownership didn't do it. Ownership didn't do anything this offseason. I know what Mike Trout has said.
They didn't even try to do something.
I know what Mike Trout has said. Nothing. And he has said he wants to try and win in with the Angels, and he wants to go down with the ship. But I think that's a lot of talk now at this point in his career. I think that used to be true. I think we're nearing a point where Mike Trout is going to start to try and wiggle his way out of the Angels. Now, whether he does that this year, whether it's in the offseason or something, I don't know, but I think it's untenable. I just don't think he's going to spend his whole career with the Angels and wallow away in Disneyland turning into nothing. I really feel like he does want to have a legitimate shot at winning a World Series at some point in what's going to be a Hall of Fame career, and it's just going to have no playoff accolades whatsoever.
Artie Moreno really did just straight up not listen to him.
Yeah,
but I feel like he signed that extension after Harper signed in Philadelphia, and he was willing to let it ride. And I can't guess as to why, but hey,
at that point they kept spending money, but they were spending money. Like they got Rendon, they knew they were going to go after Ohtani. They had gone after starting pitchers, and none of it worked out. But they did make plays for players, and it all blew up in their faces. They had no idea how to construct a baseball team properly at all.
So you're saying his faith was in the Angels until very recently.
Yes.
That faith.
Yes.
Okay. I just have kind of surrendered to the idea that he just for whatever reason will not leave, and I'm just going to keep until he convinces me otherwise.
You guys may both be right. I may be reading this totally wrong, but you guys may absolutely be right. He may be happy just living out his days.
Oh, I didn't say that. I don't think he's happy.
I mean, John, you're making a really good point, because Artie Moreno did just straight up ignore him.
Yeah,
he said in public, I asked him to do this, and Artie Moreno responded by throwing a couple of dollars at him as he walked out of the room, like, do what you want.
Petting a big fluffy white cat.
I got you, Robert Stevenson. What more do you want, jerk?
Isn't he out for the season?
Yeah, he's out for the year. Yeah, he's out for the year.
John, you might be right. I have to wonder how it's going to look at the end, when we get to September and people start asking him, because that's what's going to be interesting. How this season feels without Ohtani.
Yeah. He doesn't have Ohtani now. He knows the talent level has just dropped off a cliff. This team, they may not win 65 games. The Angels. I mean, this is his first productive season in 3-4 years where he's been healthy. I mean, he does not have many more seasons like this. So if he wants one more bite at the apple, he has to know the Angels aren't competitive for another 2 or 3 years at the most. And that's if they make the right decisions, which they won't. He's got to talk his way out of there. I think the groundwork is going to start getting laid. That's just a prediction. No inside information, obviously, because I'm not an insider or a reporter or anything. I'm just some dumb fan who watches him from afar. But I can't imagine him, because like you said, moving his family, uprooting, I get all that, but he's 32 years old. He's not a young kid anymore. Players do it all the time, and they have a lot of help. They have enough money to provide to help them with whatever they need to do. But I don't know. I'm not going to plead with Mike Trout to come to Philadelphia. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm just it's an interesting situation he's in that I just don't see as it being tenable.
Yeah. How could his faith be anything other than zero, especially after recent developments? I totally agree, but I also am just like, well,
show me.
It's not like the Angels have changed a huge deal since he's been there. I mean, and if he doesn't get back to the postseason before he retires, they're going to write a book called The 12 October at Bats of Mike Trout, and just that'll be what it is. And then
it's going to be one of the saddest baseball reads in history, man.
Then he's just coaching at the All-Star game, and maybe going back to his old high school or something, and you're just like,
guys like Ernie Banks and Ken Griffey Jr. never made the playoffs, but they didn't have 3 wild cards in each league. This is such it's not low-hanging fruit. It's hard to make the playoffs, but it's never been easier to get to the playoffs, and he's never going to get there. Anyway, we are really long here on this podcast, so let's get to some final thoughts here. And Liz, let me start off with you. Do you have any final thoughts to share with the audience here this evening?
That game that I mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, the Mets and Cubs, I saw after we started. The Mets had been leading that one for most of the game until the 8th inning, when the Cubs scored 3 runs in the 8th and 9th, and they lost 3-1. Which just feels very Mets, even after all this time.
I has a sad for them. For them. That's very sad for the Mets.
That was worth
Thank you.
mentioning.
That is a good final thought.
It was funny and embarrassing for them.
That is a good final thought. A cheery final thought for us. Thank you, Liz. Justin, final thoughts.
I just wanted to give credit to NBC Sports Philly for how open and devastating they were about beating and sweeping the Padres and bringing up the cringe NLCS. Would we call it a hype video from 2022? Really hammering that, making it a part of graphics and headlines and video packages.
Oh, yeah.
They latched onto that and they didn't let go. And I just wanted to say, well done. That is, I wish there were other teams the Phillies had broken in ways that the Phillies just absolutely broke the Padres franchise. Just fantastic stuff.
It was savage. It was great.
They really must hate being in San Diego for some. They must hate it. Because otherwise, why are they doing that?
Man, of all the places, San Diego is one of the nicer spots you're going to go to. That's just, it was so bad. It was so bad that it's going to live forever. It's the greatest thing in the world that it's going to live forever, for sure.
There was a Padres fan who was like, I think the only way to shake this off is like to have these guys come on TV and explain themselves.
Yeah.
Like what were they trying to do? And apologize.
That's a documentary. That's a documentary that needs to be made. The behind the scenes of that, making of that video, like how they came up. We need more reporting on that for sure.
What did you think this was going to be like?
Of some viral. Well, it did get viral. It did go viral, fellas.
The only way to shake that off is to win a World Series.
Yeah.
You can't live that down as you go all the way through and come out the other side.
No.
It's the only way.
That was a big roll of the dice, fellas. And hey,
bringing that up every postseason, every single one until they win a World Series.
They say, shoot your shot. Sometimes don't shoot your shot.
Sometimes keep that shot. Maybe save that shot for later.
Holster the shot.
Maybe run that shot by your friends and family and see what they think before you fire that shot on television.
And if they've told you, hey, this is great, definitely go on TV with it. Now you know who to cut out of your life. Like, this makes the decision-making process much easier, for sure. All right, everybody, look, that's going to do it for this edition of Hittin' Season. My thanks to Justin and Liz for hopping on here and talking to all of yous about this Phils team. And listen, no matter how things turn out here in LA, we're finishing up this podcast with the Phillies holding a lead, but they get this Angels team for 2 more games on Tuesday and Wednesday before returning back to Philadelphia with a much-needed off day on Thursday. So we'll be back at you with a couple of more podcasts this week. Make sure you check out everything we got going on over at our Hittin' Season Patreon. That's at patreon.com/Hittin' Season. Read Liz's great work at Yahoo Sports, sports.yahoo.com. Justin at Baseball Prospectus, and all my stuff over at The Good Fight as well. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time right here on Hittin' Season.